2 weeks after Taehyung's accident, the Kim house echoed with shouting. Bills piled on the table, red notices stamped on envelopes. Mrs. Kim slammed her hand down. Enough. Since Taehyung is refusing to send money and that girl of his is controlling him, we need to manage ourselves. Jihoo scoffed, crossing his arms. Manage? With what? You think I'll go stand in line for some pathetic job? Minji threw her phone on the sofa with a loud thud. Me either. Do you know how embarrassing it would be if my friends saw me working in a shop? Forget it, Mom. Mrs. Kim's face turned red. Then what do you expect? Food will fall from the sky. Electricity will pay itself. Jungwoo, sitting with his game controller, muttered. Taehyung should have thought about that. He's the eldest. It's his responsibility. Mrs. Kim snapped. He almost died, Jungwoo, and still, he said he'll stay with her. Can't you see that wife of his is brainwashing him? The room went silent for a moment before Mrs. Kim straightened her back, voice sharp. Enough. From tomorrow, I will start working. At least someone has to act like a grown-up here. What? Minji's jaw dropped. You working? That's humiliating for us. What will people say? Better they laugh than we starve, Mrs. Kim hissed. Jihoo slammed his fist on the table. I'm not wasting my youth slaving at some cheap job because Taehyung decided to play house with his wife. Minji added bitterly, that girl ruined everything. She turned him against us. If she wasn't here, he'd still be sending money, Jungwoo muttered. We should have never let him marry her. Mrs. Kim clenched her teeth, rage boiling inside. Don't worry, I'll find a way. But mark my words, Taehyung will come crawling back. He owes us his life, and that wife of his can't protect him forever. Minji added bitterly, that girl ruined everything. She turned him against us. If she wasn't here, he'd still be sending money, Jungwoo muttered. We should have never let him marry her. Mrs. Kim clenched her teeth, rage boiling inside. Don't worry, I'll find a way. But mark my words, Taehyung will come crawling back. He owes us his life, and that wife of his can't protect him forever. The siblings exchanged dark looks, their anger not at themselves for being useless, but at YN, who had finally stolen their control. Taehyung sat on the couch, his arms still in a sling, watching YN fold laundry. His chest ached, not from the stitches, but from guilt. YN, his voice was low, hesitant. She looked up. He swallowed hard. I wasted so much of your strength. All this time, instead of building a life for us, I let my family drain everything. Even your salary, it went into their demands. I didn't give you enough, not even the basics you deserve. YN softened, placing the folded shirt aside and sitting next to him. She cupped his face gently. Stop, you gave me something no money can buy. Your love. I don't care if we eat plain rice or live in a small house, as long as it's with you. That's enough for me. A weak smile tugged at his lips, but tears glimmered in his eyes. How are you so strong when I've been such an idiot? YN chuckled lightly, wiping his cheek with her thumb. Because one of us has to be the smart one in this marriage. Guess it's me, Taehyung laughed, shaking his head. So I'm the beta here. Huh, she smirked. Exactly. My sweet, lovable idiot beta. Their laughter mixed with warmth, and Taehyung peeked from his room, holding something behind his back. Appa, he muttered shyly. Taehyung turned, smiling. Yes, buddy. Taehyung hesitated, chewing his lip. My friend has an Iron Man study table. Can I also have one? His eyes were uncertain, afraid of asking too much. Taehyung's chest tightened painfully. He realized how easily he'd spent thousands on his siblings' useless luxuries, but when it came to his son, even a small request felt like a mountain. He blinked quickly, masking the sting in his eyes, and forced a smile. Of course, Taehyung, anything for you. You'll have an even cooler table than your friends. Taehyung's face lit up as he ran to hug his father, and YN quietly rested her hand over Taehyung's, squeezing gently. He glanced at her, She didn't say a word, but her eyes told him, "This is where your money belongs." With us, with your real family, Taehyung kissed the top of Taewoo's head, his heart aching and healing at the same time. The old Kim house was already noisy with Minji and Jihoo lounging around all day. But the day Jungwoo dragged his wife Yuri and their 2 children inside, things turned into a circus. Mrs. Kim spread her arms dramatically. My son, you've come home at last. This house is always yours." Yuri forced a smile but dropped her luggage with a thud. "Good, because paying rent in this city is impossible. At least here, we don't have to worry about that." Minji crossed her arms. "Excuse me. Who said you can just move in like this?" Jihoo snorted. "Exactly. We barely have space for ourselves. Now to noisy kids," Yuri smirked. "Oh, please. At least my husband has a family to bring him back. You too." Sitting around waiting for Taehyung's money like parasites. That struck a nerve. Minji shot up, blaring. "Say that again." Soon voices filled the house, accusations, insults, the kids crying for attention, and Mr. Kim shouting over everyone to act like family. Mrs. Kim, as always, pressed her hands to her chest and whined, "This stress will kill me one day." But instead of sympathy, Yuri rolled her eyes. "Stop pretending, Yomioni. You're not fainting. You're just avoiding the truth. Your children don't know how to stand on their own feet." The whole house erupted again. In was sipping her coffee when her phone buzzed. It was a neighbor from the old street, whispering all the juicy details. She listened, then looked at Taehyung with a raised brow. "Guess what? Your precious Hyung and his special wife just moved back in with your parents. And now the whole Kim house is basically a war zone." Taehyung rubbed his temples, already exhausted just hearing it. "Ace, of course," Wyan smirked, leaning back on the sofa. "And to think, if we hadn't moved out, that drama would have been ours to deal with." To Taewoo playing with his toy car, looked up innocently. "Yama, is Grandma fighting again?" Yn ruffled his hair, chuckling. "Not fighting, baby. Just being loud." As always, for the first time, Taehyung didn't defend his family. He just sat quietly, a heavy sigh leaving his chest, while Yn's knowing smile lingered. The old Kim house was drowning in noise. Jungwoo and Yuri's kids were crying. Minji was sulking about no privacy. Jihoo was scrolling on his phone. And Mrs. Kim was yelling about how much rice was being eaten in a single day. Finally, Mr. Kim slammed the table. "Call Taehyung. He has to send money. How can we feed so many mouths like this?" Mrs. Kim dialed with trembling fingers, but her eyes gleamed with expectation. When Taehyung picked up, her voice turned soft and pitiful. "Taehyung, you know your Hyung's family has moved back. Things are very hard here, food, bills, everything. We need money immediately." Taehyung, sitting on the couch beside Yn, closed his eyes, holding the phone tightly. His voice was calm but firm. "Yomioni, I don't live there anymore. That house isn't my responsibility. If you're struggling, divide the expenses between all of you. Jungwoo, Minji, Jihoo. Everyone should contribute." There was stunned silence on the other end. Then Mrs. Kim's voice cracked. "How can you talk like this? We are your parents." "Yes," Taehyung replied softly, "and because you are my parents, I will give you some money once I start working again. But only for you, not for everyone else. Minji and Jihoo are grown adults, and Jungwoo has his own family. They should take care of themselves. For now, deal with it." Mrs. Kim gasped like he had stabbed her. In the background, Minji hissed, "Appa can't talk like that." Jihoo muttered angrily, and Jungwoo's wife cursed under her breath. But Taehyung didn't waver. "I have no money right now. I'm still healing. I'll start working in 2 weeks. After that, I'll give you what I can. Until then, stop calling me for every single expense." And before they could guilt him again, he cut the call. Who had been listening with her arms crossed, slowly smiled. Finally, Taehyung sighed, leaning back. It wasn't easy. But you were right, YN. They'll never stop unless I stop them. In shifted closer, resting her head on his shoulder. Exactly. You're not their money-making machine anymore. You're my husband, Taehyung's father. That's where you belong. For the first time in a long while, Taehyung felt free. The phone slipped from Mrs. Kim's hand, her face pale. He said no. The room froze for a moment. Then Minji slammed her palm on the table. What do you mean no? Appa has always given us money. He can't just stop. Jihu scowled. Of course he can. He has his own wife and kid now. What do you expect? For him to feed all of us forever? Shut up, Minji shot back. You're just saying that because you're lazy too. When was the last time you even tried to get a proper job? Jihu's jaw tightened. At least I'm not running around the house acting like a princess waiting for Appa's wallet. Yuri, Jungwoo's wife, laughed bitterly. Look at you two fighting over Taehyung's money like dogs. Maybe if either of you actually worked, you wouldn't need his help. Minji's face turned red. Excuse me, at least I don't freeload with a husband who can't even pay rent. Yuri gasped. Say that again. Her two kids started crying at the rising voices. Jungwoo, already humiliated, barked, Enough. Stop insulting my wife. Minji's face turned red. Excuse me, at least I don't freeload with a husband who can't even pay rent. Yuri gasped. Say that again. Her two kids started crying at the rising voices. Jungwoo, already humiliated, barked, Enough. Stop insulting my wife. Jihu smirked. Why, she's right though. You can't provide for your family, Hyung. Even Taehyung is tired of covering for you. Jungkook grabbed his brother by the collar, fury blazing in his eyes. Watch your mouth, Mr. Kim shouted over the chaos. All of you, stop it. Can't you see you're breaking this family apart? Mrs. Kim pressed a hand to her forehead, tears flowing. My Taehyung, how could he talk to me like that? After everything I did for him, but no one comforted her. Everyone was too busy blaming each other. The house that once relied on Taehyung's money was now cracking at its foundation, every voice louder, every face angrier. Meanwhile, at their quiet home, Taehyung sat with YN and Taehyung around the dinner table. The sound of Taehyung's little laugh as he played with his iron nan toy filled the room. For the first time, Taehyung realized this was family. Not the shouting, not the demands, just love. The sun poured gently through the curtains as YN buttoned Taehyung's little school shirt. He squirmed, giggling, Yama, it's too tight. You're growing too fast, she teased, patting his cheeks. Meanwhile, Taehyung stood at the mirror, adjusting his tie for his first day back at work. In's eyes softened when she looked at him. Her husband was healing, not just physically, but inside too. Soon, the small family walked out of their modest company house. Their old car waited, slightly scratched but dependable. Taehyung opened the pack. On the road, Taehyung sang along to a cartoon-themed tune, kicking his legs happily. In glanced back with a fond smile, then turned toward Taehyung as he drove. Out of nowhere, he said softly, YN. She hummed, adjusting her bag. We should buy a new car. YN's head snapped toward him, eyes wide. What now? Taehyung chuckled at her expression, one hand still on the wheel. Yes, not cash, on lease. We can manage the installments together, don't you think? Her lips curved slowly into a smile, the shock giving way to pride. She reached over, covering his free hand. Of course we can. If we can manage a whole life together, what's a car lease? He laughed, squeezing her fingers before lifting them gently to kiss the back of her hand. His eyes shone not with guilt, but with hope, a future where they built their own life, piece by piece. From the back seat, Taehyung piped up innocently, Appa, can it be red, like Iron Man's suit? Both YN and Tae burst into laughter, and for the first time, the car filled only with joy, not burdens. The once noisy Kim house had fallen quieter, not out of peace, but exhaustion. Minji dragged herself through the door after a 10-hour shift at a restaurant. Her uniform still smelled of fried food, and her feet ached. "Appa, I can't do this anymore," she groaned, throwing her apron onto the sofa. Customers shout, the manager yells, all for such little money. Taehyung came in next, wiping sweat from his forehead. He'd been standing at a petrol pump all day, refueling cars, inhaling fumes. "At least you get tips," he muttered bitterly. "I stand there for hours, smelling like gasoline, and people act like I don't exist." Finally, Jungwoo walked in, wearing a crumpled uniform from a small cafe. He was exhausted, his pride shredded. "Order taking all day, listening to college kids boss me around. I've never felt this low." The three siblings slumped at the table. For the first time, there was no gossip, no laughter, no demands, only silence. Yuri, Jungwoo's wife, came out of the kitchen with their kids. "I told you, I can't work. I have children to take care of. This house depends on you three." Her words stung. Minji muttered, "Easy for you to say. You sit at home while we kill ourselves outside for pennies." Jihoon leaned his head back against the chair, closing his eyes. "Hyung, remember how easy it was to call Taehyung and ask for money? Just one call, and he'd pay." Jungwoo let out a humorless laugh. "Yeah, we thought he had it so easy. But now they realize earning is harder than begging." "Much harder." Mr. Kim shuffled in with his cane, frowning. "So what, will you give up already? Taehyung never gave up when he provided for us." Mrs. Kim sighed dramatically. He was different. He loved us, but Minji's eyes narrowed, guilt flickering in them for the first time. "No, he was just used to us. We made him our machine, and now look at us." The bitter truth hung in the air. Of money didn't flow without sweat, and for the first time, the siblings felt the weight of reality pressing on their shoulders. The small home YN got from her company had transformed into a warm, lively space. Curtain sheets chosen, photos on the walls, and Taewoo's toys scattered everywhere made it truly theirs. Taehyung came in from work, loosening his tie. His face lit up the moment he saw YN sitting on the sofa, her hand resting on her baby bump. 6 months, he murmured with a soft smile, kneeling to kiss her belly. "Halfway there, my love." YN giggled, brushing his hair back. "Don't spoil me too much, Tae. You already treat me like a queen." Taehyung came running with his toy car, climbing onto his father's lap. "Appa, race with me?" Taehyung laughed, juggling between his son and his wife. "Race later. First, let me check on Yuriyama." He kissed YN's hand, his eyes full of gratitude. Despite his busy job, he had made it a point to slow down at home. Dinner together, bedtime stories with Taehyung, late-night tea with YN. These were sacred moments. Every month, Tae still sent some money to his parents as a son's duty. But it was a small amount now, nothing like the sacrifice he once made. Surprisingly, the Kims never dared complain openly again. They knew he had drawn a boundary. One evening, YN teased him while folding baby clothes. "Remember last year, I said no more children. I was scared." "We were barely surviving." Taehyung hugged her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "And now," he whispered. YN smiled, placing his hand on her belly. "Now I'm happy, because we're ready. Because we're together." Taehyung kissed her cheek softly. "That's all I ever wanted, a family of my own. And you gave me that, in that small, love-filled home." Their laughter drowned out the noise of the past. The Kim house wasn't the same anymore. The walls looked dull, the old furniture creaked, and the air felt heavy. Minji came home from her shift at a restaurant, her uniform stained with oil. She tossed her bag on the couch and sighed. Every day the same thing, orders, customers, standing all day. "I can't do this forever." Jihoon, just back from a petrol pump job, rolled his eyes. "Then what do you want? At least you have work." "I'm dead on my feet too." Junghoon sat silently, his wife scolding him about groceries being too expensive. Their kids were cranky, their clothes worn. Survival had replaced comfort. Mr. Kim, tired and old, muttered from his chair. It wasn't this hard when Taehyung gave us everything. Mrs. Kim sighed deeply. We drained him and lost him. He sends a little every month. But it's not the same. The family went quiet. Deep down, they all knew their greed had pushed him away. 2 months later, the sound of a car outside made the neighborhood kids run to peek. It was Taehyung's car. He stepped out, looking healthy and confident, with YN glowing beside him and Taehyung bouncing in excitement. Mrs. Kim hurried to the door. Her face softened when she saw her son. Tae, she whispered, almost guilty. Yama, Taehyung greeted politely, bowing lightly. YN gave her a respectful smile. Taehyung ran straight to his grandmother, hugging her legs. Inside, the atmosphere was awkward. The siblings tried to chat, but Taehyung didn't talk much. He smiled faintly, listened, and focused on Taehyung playing with his cousins. He didn't ask about money. He didn't offer it either. At dinner, Mrs. Kim kept glancing at him, her eyes watery. You've changed. You don't talk like before. Taehyung placed his spoon down. I'm still your son. I'll always respect you and Appa. But my family is my priority now. I've learned my lesson, and I hope you all learn it too. Silence. No one argued this time. Even Junghoon's wife lowered her head. In sensing the heaviness, spoke softly. We came just to see you, not to fight. Let's keep peace, at least when we meet. Taehyung nodded, holding her hand under the table. For him, the boundary was clear now.